turned on. Send request.
There you go.
Okay, multiple presenters. Let's see if it works now. Here we go. There we go. Share. And how's that?
Great.
Is it showing up?
Yes, it's showing it, Michael. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Michael Ketterer. As Gabriel said, I'm a retired chemistry professor. This is my former employer when I was not retired, but I taught chemistry and biochemistry at NAU, as it's called, the Lumberjacks. And to find us, you got to go on I-40 from where you all are and go about 2,000 miles straight west and look for that mountain that's there. That's called Mount Humphrey's, tallest peak in Arizona. I work in that building there, the copper building, in the foreground, and that's where our lab is. And I do part-time work, and I measure, as Gabriel was saying, uranium and plutonium, and I study this anywhere and everywhere, and I've been doing this for about 25 years. You can look me up and see that I'm a legitimate scientist. If you go to, this is Google Scholar, you put in my name, Ketterer, got to spell it right, Flagstaff and plutonium, just those three keywords, you can see that I'm a legitimate person, and I know what I'm talking about is in evidence here, because a lot of this stuff I wrote myself. What kind of work do I do now? I do lab work, normal lab work in the big copper building. There's some pictures down on the bottom that are just from the last couple days, literally. I was working on that stuff. That's an instrument that's in the laboratory, and it's actually measuring plutonium. That lower right hand, those numbers there are going to tell us how much is there. The stuff that's in the top left, that's my garage in Flagstaff, and I'm rebuilding these and I'm putting them in the hands of communities. We've got one of these on the ground in New Mexico, and I want to tell my good friend Vinod Kali here on the call from Ohio, the next place we need this one is in Southern Ohio. So I do that kind of stuff. I get to go in the field a lot too, and if you can see that picture, that Vinod and I have gone and sampled there, and there's neptunium in the creek from the gaseous diffusion plant. I've also done a little bit of work on Aerojet in the former Aerojet Ordnance Tennessee facility, as it was called then. This is from 2013. Gabriel and community members in ECAN have copies of this stuff, and they can share that with you. But basically what this says, and this is 12 years old, is I did some soil sampling and took a look at what kind of a footprint did the former plant have on the soil. And you can determine there's an apparent footprint, and what I mean by that is that there's a detectable input of depleted uranium, that graph that's at the bottom. I don't have time to explain that, all that science, but that plot means, according to the Daubert standards in science, that means that there's depleted uranium there in that kind of shaded zone up there at the top right. So I've just really become familiar with this. My good friends in Tennessee introduced me to Gabriel, so I'm really delighted to be here. Be at the last moment, so I got kind of a bad hair day. I've been on the road. I drove from Flagstaff to near Albuquerque today, but here's what I think of what I'm hearing from you all. I'm focusing on some key words that people have told me, and they're on this screen here. I'm going to pick one, and that's Purex, because that one is really information rich to me. I know this because I do this chemistry myself. This is what Purex is. It's a process for separating uranium, neptunium, plutonium, and technetium-99. So I've heard lots about, sentences with uranium and high purity depleted uranium and things like that. I haven't heard about these other things, but this is what Purex is. My vecinos in Tennessee, this is what this is, Purex. Here's Purex. This is dated the 13th. Here's me doing Purex in my laboratory a few days ago. And I'm trying to determine if there's neptunium or plutonium in these samples. I'm going to use Purex to pull the neptunium out and leave, and the plutonium out and leave the uranium behind. In this case, I want to throw the uranium away. So I think a lot about what this plant is really going to be doing, and here's another key word that I've heard from you is there's a lot of talk about Piketon, and raw materials are coming from Piketon. I've been to Piketon a lot of times, and I know a bit about it, and here's what I can say. There's major quantities, tonnage, couple 100,000 tons of depleted uranium. It's in the chemical form of uranium hexafluoride. That's solid at ambient temperatures, but you can make it into a gas pretty easily on a hot day. It has a boiling point of somewhere around 140 Fahrenheit. That's easy to make vapors from it, believe me. It's a very serious hazard if you get enough of it leaking out into the air. I've measured it in the air, in the ambient air, in Piketon, leaking from those cylinders. I know what it is because I studied the signature science. That's what I publish in my science. And it's from those cylinders, and it's in the air. So what is this stuff there? It all went, as Lina said, from Tennessee up to Ohio. This is raw material for the new chemistry set. So they're going to do a couple things with this. They're going to make new, shells and stuff like that. And then what they really need, though, is some very, 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 very high purity uranium, depleted uranium, that contains none of those bad actors in them. These are other radioisotopes. They have different properties. What is a tamper? Tamper is a part of a nuclear bomb. This is what this business is. Here's an aerial photo of Piketon, and if you look, you can see where's the raw material there. And if the road is open, they close it down from time to time, perimeter road. I was driving in the car with Vina, and we stopped right on that road and took that picture. That's the raw material. So what really is going to be going on in this? Here's a question. I think that this plant is going to have something to do with taking these three elements out of depleted uranium. They're going to take the black oxide, dissolve it in nitric acid, do this Purex chemistry, and then they want the depleted uranium in the pure form, but where does this other stuff go? I don't know where it goes, but matter has to go somewhere. It's conserved. So why is all this stuff in the feed material? Why does this plant have to do this chemistry? Well, everything that you see in those cylinders is all contaminated. Like Lina said, it has these radionuclides in there. If you want to see the reason why they're there, go to the Department of Energy's own stuff. This is Kenton Moody of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. So what kind of things is this depleted uranium purification process using Purex chemistry going to do to make nuclear weapons parts tampers? What is this thing going to do in terms of emissions? I don't know. It doesn't sound good to me, Gabriel, what you were telling me about. This is how many 100 feet from your patio? Not very many. Here's my answer. Just look at what Pike, Scioto, and Ross County, Ohio are like today if you have this running in your community for 7 decades. So where should this go? I think about that. I live out west. I live way, way, way out west, and everybody says, put it out west, put it out west. Well, I live there, and I look at stuff like this, and my first thought was about this depleted uranium purification plant to make bomb tampers. My first thought about that was put it somewhere where there's nobody living within 5 miles of it.
Amen. Amen.
The problem is that there's always going to be somebody that doesn't want it there. And I got to tell you, my friends, I don't really want it out here either. And depending on where you go out west, you might run into this. You see that little slogan there? This is the Navajo Dene language. I cannot speak their language, but I know what that means. It means keep uranium in the ground, and the corollary to that is don't make those other elements. Yayate, I know that. That means welcome. It doesn't mean uranium is welcome, though. So I think your community has a choice. What do you guys want to be like in 30, 50, or 75 years? Do you want to be piped in? Or here's the alternative. I've been to Washington County a number of times, quite a few times, and I love your county. I really love, the Nolichucky River is one of the most spectacular rivers I've seen in the United States, and I'm in a state that calls the canyon, you know what that means, it's the Grand Canyon. So there are no shortage of spectacular rivers, but the Nolichucky is spectacular. I've stayed in the old part of Jonesborough and stayed in a little bed and breakfast, and that place is a magnet for people on the East Coast to go there. Which choice do you want, door A or door B? You decide. I'm talking to the community, you know, the people that live there. I'm not talking to regulators. I'm not talking to business interests. I'm talking to you that live there, that breathe that air and so on. Think about it. I'm happy to, I'm open to talk more about this with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So I have just a couple of questions. Yes, go ahead. Give him a hand. Yeah, we've said that before. This is a generational decision that our county faces, and it will have impacts beyond us. And it might even be a once-in-a-generation decision in Aaron's words as well. Michael, what are other sites like? I mean, you kind of said you want to be like Piketon, but what's Piketon like? Like, give me a context. When you say you want to be Jonesborough, or you want to be Piketon? Describe Piketon.
Well, your community is just having its presence is dominated. The community is dominated by the presence of this entity right in the middle of it, and it is there always, all the time, and everything associated with it all the time. The Piketon facility that I showed you the aerial photo of is 3,600 acres. So what you all are looking at is much smaller, but the impact is still the same if you're the next door neighbor. I know, I am familiar with the work of Joe Mangano, epidemiologist, who has really, as Vina was alluding to, really zoned in on what are the health effects. Piketon, it took like 30, 40 years for the health effects to start showing up, and now that's one of the worst counties in America. You're living in a county where you always got to worry, is there, what's in the air today? I think your community, this is stuff that has happened at Piketon. There have been very serious accidents and releases of things like uranium hexafluoride, probably uranium metal fires, things like that. There's a lot, but this is not a chocolate factory, amigos. Just bear that in mind. I mean, I'm really pretty hurt by what I'm hearing here. Because, the last time I was in Jonesborough, this was not in the cards.
Yeah.
Not this purification business. No.
Thank you, Michael. Another question, and then I'd love to turn it over to Q&A for any of our panel, Kevin, Aaron, myself, Miss Sue. But one question, do you have, this maybe is like a generic question, so forgive me. What words do you have for us, the citizens of Washington County facing this? What advice do you have? What words do you have? What's in your gut?
I'd say if you lose on this, continue to fight. And what I would do is I would recommend any community that has any of this kind of stuff, you got to do perpetual environmental monitoring. You got to set up the technology that I have to monitor this stuff for yourself. I'll give you an example. I'm talking right now to a community in Canyon City, Colorado, former uranium milling site. This is the exact same message I'm telling them. You've got to understand your environment. The state is not going to help you. Your county health department is not going to help you. The US EPA is not going to help you, and I'm saying that as somebody who has worked 6 years for US EPA early in my career. EPA is not going to help you. The industry is not your friend, nor is the Department of Defense, nor the Department of Energy. Nobody. The delegation in Tennessee, the congressional delegation in Tennessee, I doubt it. You do not have any friends but yourselves.
Okay. Awesome. So
that's my
setting up our own.
It's brutal. I am your friend because it's not okay to shit on a community like I'm seeing anywhere. It's as good as I heard.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, I'd love to open the floor. I was going to try to adjourn by 7:45, so that would give us like 15 minutes of some great questions. I saw. Thank you. I saw someone in the back, right? Yes, gentlemen. Yes, sir. Aaron's going to run you a microphone if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. This Ketterer. I apologize. It's been 40 years since I had physical chemistry, but what I hear tonight and last week is maybe not right about this, but what I hear is some confusion in what is uranium depletion and uranium enrichment. And I hear those terms being tossed about here nearly interchangeably. And I think they are fundamentally different. Am I wrong on that, Dr. Ketterer?
Sir, I'm very careful to make distinctions about, I know 9 ways from Sunday, what is natural uranium, enriched uranium, depleted uranium, recycled uranium with uranium-236, enriched uranium with uranium-236, and not. I have bios full of signatures from these things all over the place. Depleted uranium, what that means, I'll speak to the people of Washington County because I think Washington County needs to understand what depleted means. Depleted means it's been stripped of its uranium-235 content. Naturally occurring uranium is about 0.7% uranium-235. Somewhere around 7 out of 1,000 atoms are uranium-235. The goal of an enrichment plant is to do that. This facility in Jonesborough, I never said anything about this being an enrichment plant. No. That's piped in. That's no longer done by gaseous diffusion up there.
Which is my point.
Yeah, there's not.
Everyone seems to be talking about in Jonesborough. They seem to be worried about enrichment and not depletion.
What you need to worry about is the end. That let's say that it's called the tails. If you want to look at it as the garbage, the end result of the enrichment process is this depleted uranium stuff. It's about 0.2%, so that means they've taken about 5 out of 1,000 of the uranium-235 atoms have been removed. They've been made into high enriched uranium. They made stuff up to 97% uranium-235 at Portsmouth. That's what's needed for weapons. But enrichment and depletion is talking about how much uranium-235 does it have relative to nature. Now, here's the thing I want to tell this to the fence line neighbors. There's going to be emissions from this plant, and the emissions from this plant will have their own special signature to them. It's like it has as good as a DNA fingerprint to it, because the uranium that's coming out of the stack or the water or whatever from this plant is going to be depleted uranium that contrasts with the Earth's crust. And those machines that I have, you know, all that stuff that's in my garage, all that junk that my wife yells at me, get rid of that stuff, Michael. That is going to distinguish and tell you how much came from where. And you know, this is a plant that is going to have its signature all over it, all day, every day. You know, you will be able to track this. You know, and you don't like it, well, you know, get some lab reports and start mailing them to the state. Hey, governor, I don't know who your governor is in Tennessee. You know, do you want to live in this filth? I wouldn't.
All right, but you're
last question, Fred. I just want to give more folks.
You were also talking about, the guy was over there last week, and this is something else that's, you know, semantics or whatever. The new part of the process is a chemical process, which may be related to, or the Purex process that you talked about earlier. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but, you know, is the Purex process a process that makes uranium, natural uranium, or the uranium oxide that they get from wherever? Is that a newer process of separating?
I think
depleting the uranium from U-235.
I think I see what you're asking. There's chemical separation of one element from another, and then there's isotope separation. Isotope separation is done in specialized equipment like a gaseous diffusion plant, like was first built at Oak Ridge, and then later at Piketon. Or these days in centrifuges. There's going to be a whole bunch of centrifuges at Piketon and also in New Mexico. The chemical separation, though, is not change. All of those isotope separations are intended to change its isotope composition. You know, pull out the uranium-235. We need that for weapons. Leave the uranium-238, as much of that as possible, behind. That's the garbage, the depleted uranium. Chemical separation is to say, take some uranium, like it's in that cylinders in Piketon, it's probably about, maybe 500 parts per million by mass. I don't know. I'd have to calculate it. I don't know what the parts per million by mass of neptunium and all those other guys are. You're not going to remember their names after tonight, but you should. You know, the Purex process is not going to change the isotope composition of uranium, but it's going to take all of that neptunium and all that. It's going to take it out and separate it into another compartment. It's going to go into a sludge. It's going to go into a waste. It's going to be sent to Nevada. It's going to be sent to Carlsbad. It's going to be peed into your river. You know, it'll wind up in your glass. I don't know where that neptunium is going, but it's going to be taken out.
Okay. Awesome. Anybody else have a question? Actually, right up here, I saw him earlier. Go ahead, sir.
I just have a statement.
Okay.
My name's Stan Olmstead, and I've heard this story.
Can you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
I've heard this story over and over again, and it doesn't turn out well. This is not a friend of the community. It's not a friend of any community.
Yeah. We
have a long history contaminating ourselves with radioactive material. They've used it systematically till now, killing people. The depleted uranium is the reason they want it for weapons. It's because 1.8 times more dense than lead, which means it penetrates metal. But once it's fired, it becomes a dirty bomb. Now, we all heard news items about dirty bombs, and we're afraid of them completely. In the United States, they probably produce more dirty bombs than anybody in the world. TDEC is one of them. They got hijacked sometime back in the 70s or 80s by some oligarch and some politicians, and EPA is the same situation. So I would ask the commissioners to think about what was said today, especially about the zoning. The zoning, this is a wonderful community, but if you continue to develop and develop out of control, it'll just be nothing but pollution and congestion, and the housing values aren't the issue, as bad as they are. The children in Iraq died because of dirty bombs. American soldiers died in Iraq because they tried to do the cleanup, and they said, it's not worth doing.
Thank you, sir.
We don't want depleted uranium in this community.
Amen. We don't. Thank you so much. I will say, the commissioners, and no slagging you at all. I appreciate everything you said. The commissioners will be taking comment when it gets in front of them. I don't necessarily want tonight's forum to turn into let's talk to the commissioners. We're just concerned citizens. We're asking questions of experts. They're observing our concerns, but I don't want to hijack this with, let's talk to the commissioners. I appreciate that they've come, and that's, this meeting is about something else. So they'll take comment at the end of January. Go ahead, Aaron. And, who would be next? There's somebody right over here. Go ahead. Aaron's coming over. Thank you for your service, sir. I really appreciate it. Hold on a second. Microphone's coming your way. There you go, sir.
My name's Luther Miller, and I just want to back up a couple of things she had. 3 months out of the military in 1970, I went to work what was then Tennessee Nuclear. Didn't know what they did or nothing else. During the 6 months I was there, I had shots put in under my fingernails because of chemicals that got there. I also got bathed in caustic soda, so I quit. Then in 1977, being dumb, stupid, my wife and I built a house along their fence line. I could sit on my back deck and look into the building she was talking about where the furnaces are. So now she has stage 3 kidney failure. She has thyroid problems. She has heart problem to the point that she's got a pacemaker and a watchman. I have bone marrow cancer. I take medication to keep my pancreas working. I have a growth next to my pancreas that, thank God, it has crystallized. So I also have heart problems. So is that because of what's going on down there at that plant? We asked Representative Alexander about the plant. Her response was, it's not going to be any worse than what it is right now. How worse is it right now? Somebody tell me. They won't.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Got a guy with a great mustache. Yes, sir. You're looking fresh out of Tombstone, bro.
I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
So I just want to confirm what the doctor said, make sure I'm hearing it right. I keep hearing uranium, this uranium that we don't want the uranium. What the doctor seems to be saying is the issue is not the uranium, it's what they're removing from the uranium. The neptunium, the plutonium, that other element he mentioned. Is that what the risk is, doctor, or is it also the uranium as well?
It's all of it. So thank you. That's a wonderful question, sir. It's really all of it. The feed in every form. The feed material that's coming in is some black oxide. It's a powder. It's going to have uranium as its major component, and little bits, small concentrations of these others. But the material, the uranium, all the way through the process in whatever chemical form it is, it's going to be a dangerous material itself. Uranium dust going out into the community in some solid form with aerosols, and all of that is dangerous irrespective of whether it had these impurities in it. But the impurities, though, are going to have to be stripped out, and then they're going to have to be either concentrated and sent somewhere, or they're going to have to be discharged into the environment. Now, Vina was talking about a place called Little Beaver Creek in Ohio. Just for reference, that's a creek that drains the north end of the Piketon site where all that good stuff is, and I have measured neptunium in the water. There's neptunium in the water, and it's probably been there for 60, 70 years, every day, all day. But I measured it in the water about 20 times out of 20 in the last 3-4 years from sampling in this little Beaver Creek. We also found that there's plant uptake in Pike County, Ohio. They've been emitting technetium into the air, and it's accumulated in the soil. It goes into the fresh vegetables and so on. The Department of Energy is kind of walking between the raindrops about not talking about this. Now, if, you know, my point here on all this, and I don't really know what scale they're talking about doing here in Jonesborough, but everything has to go somewhere. There's neptunium in that feed, there's technetium, and there's plutonium in that feed that's going in, and it has to go somewhere. It's going to be handled inside that facility a few hundred feet from your house, Gabriel. You know, that's what they're doing in there. They're not making scrubbing bubbles. I would be really, really worried about a uranium metal fire, a UF6 gas leak. I would want every conceivable type of community preparedness. There's a lot of scenarios in a plant like this with these kinds of quantities of material where, you know, they're not a couple grams like I might play around with in a chemistry lab under controlled lab conditions. These are huge quantities of materials. There's a lot of potential for an IDLH.
What's
John,
IDLH?
This is something your county needs to know about if you have this kind of a facility. IDLH stands for immediately dangerous to life and health. And what that describes are environmental situations like a gas leak. So, for example, look up this one, Bhopal, B-H-O-P-A-L.
Bhopal, B-O-H-P-A-L.
Bhopal, that's right. Look that up on your phone before you leave the room. That's IDLH.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of scenarios like that in a plant like this with nitric acid, large quantities of nitric acid, probably tanker trucks full of it to
Hydrogen
dissolve.
fluoride as well is a big one we've been talking
Hydrogen
about.
fluoride is a gas. It's also hydrogen fluoride dissolved in water is hydrofluoric acid. That is absolutely bad on steroids if you get it on your skin or breathe it. A couple good lungfuls of it will kill you. That's in the IDLH category. Do they have any tanks? As soon as this thing starts, you guys get there on aerial photos. Now, if you fly drones, they're going to shoot them down. But
They flew all over my property, and I wasn't allowed to shoot.
yeah, you can look at what they're doing on your property, and you should. You have to protect yourselves, community members. You know, you do. I'm serious. I mean, I grew up in a place where I had this stuff. I'm 65 years old now. I had this stuff stomped on my face, and I know the signs of it. I had this stomped on my face where I grew up in Western New York, and I'm tired of that my whole life. Just like Vine was saying, you have a fork in the road.
Thank you, Michael. Guys, I did want to shut it down at 7:45, unless, show of hands, if you'd like 2 more questions. 2 more? Okay, all right. So, Aaron, who you pick this time? We'll do 2 more questions, and we'll close it down just out of honor for our guests. Everybody.
I've been dying to ask you this question. Do you ever do studies of like air dispersion and where, for example, if a container of UF6 exploded due to human error, like what happened in Gore, Oklahoma in the 80s, instead of toxic flew out 20 miles into the community, killed people and everything else, our winds go from, I guess to the northeast from this facility that's proposed. Could we face something like that? It sounds from what you're saying like we're going to have acres of this kind of chemical stored, probably carted down from Portsmouth and Paducah, and it's going to be right there by the Little Limestone.
It's a very, very bad scenario. These are all wonderful questions. Very, very good. Well, disturbing questions. Really, really disturbing questions. UF6 is uranium hexafluoride, as it's called, or hex, or if it's depleted, they call it DUF6. All of these things mean something that can go into the air and it can be dispersed and it can be very dangerous. There was a UF6 leak in Metropolis, Illinois. You can find videos on YouTube, or at least you could some time ago. These are all very, very bad scenarios. I think the key question is the quantity. I really would want to understand the quantity. If we're talking about something that's the size of a small propane tank for your barbecue, that's not so bad. If you've got hundreds of these 14-ton cylinders, that's a lot, and that can produce an IDLH situation. I am not involved specifically in modeling what happens when this gas gets released. Rather, what I do is I can kind of find the breadcrumbs later is what I'm doing. So for instance, I've monitored the air in southern Ohio there, and you find enriched uranium in the air. I kind of track where does it go by analyzing samples, and it will go.
That's good. And for context, Michael, because I don't know that you know this, but their contract with the government for $1.6 billion is to produce 300 metric tons of high purity depleted uranium annually.
Up to 400.
Up to 400. 24/7 is the potential. They're literally talking about 24/7 production. So that, just get to that.
I do think it's important to clarify too that the UF6 or the hexafluoride, the process that they have submitted for shows it coming in as U308, not UF6, which is a big clarification, I would imagine, on the process. I just want to make sure we're not putting bad data out there, as well as just so everybody's aware. Like they talk about their process being clean. They're not putting any waste out into the facility, into the river or anything like that. Well, there is also the Little Limestone Creek is on a list called 303D through TDEC, meaning it's an endangered risk, meaning that you are not allowed to exceed any more that is currently going into that creek. So just know that that is not because, and I'm not trying to put ill will on them, but it's not because they're trying to stay clean, it's because they literally can't put anything more into that creek of what they're doing. But that is also a cause for concern of just having the stuff physically on the property in general is exacerbating the problems that creek is already experiencing.
It's good. One question here. Right over there. That'd be great.
Yes, I'm confused about the information that we've been getting from the company. It seems to me that the input, the feedstock going into Aerojet, what it's been using here, has been uranium hexafluoride and possibly uranium tetrafluoride, I don't know. But the Aerojet process takes it from there and goes to the purification down there. However, the way I've heard the new process described, which the new facility will have an input of uranium oxide, and it's got to take it from there through the fluoridation process or some other process to get the metal out and then dispose of the other elements that you're talking about. I'm surprised that the company has not been more forthcoming in describing the new process that will take it one step further than Aerojet has taken.
Awesome. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, that wasn't much of a question as much as a statement.
Mr. Ketterer, it's a privilege to see your face in person. I read your research in grad school. So I am a field biologist by training, and I am curious if you might know of and be willing to share any evidentiary research on the distribution of these chemicals in karst aquifers. This area is extremely karst, as far as like the limestone topography that's underneath us and how our watersheds work. A lot of people here live on wells and springs, and we know that that is going to travel underground as much as it will travel in Little Limestone Creek. Do you know of any research that you might be able to assist with sharing to our team as evidence to how that would spread in karst topography?
Great question.
Well, I'm a little bit familiar with the karsts in eastern Tennessee. I've been in some caves, and I'm familiar with some sinkholes, such as by the elementary school in Unicoi County a few years back. Some of the best work that I've seen done, and I teach environmental chemistry and aquatic chemistry, or I did in the past, and we talk about karst formations. The thing to watch out for there is the rate of movement of contaminants in groundwater can be extremely fast. And there's I heard a talk a while ago by the state geologist of the state of Missouri, which has very similar topography in places. And that was their point, that a contaminant could go in one place and emerge, a week later, almost like miles away, literally, instead of thinking of it as the groundwater creeps along. And then the other problem with it is that it's changing all the time. So I'd be really pretty concerned about groundwater contamination anywhere and everywhere. I haven't looked at I'm not a groundwater, like a hydrologist, geologist. I'm not that, but it's peripheral or tangential to what I work on. But this is a dangerous situation with karst formations. And I'll just add that uranium, neptunium, technetium, not so much plutonium, but those first three have a propensity to be relatively soluble in water. And they can go anywhere. So where the water goes, so do those guys.
Thank you, Michael. Everybody, please give Michael a hand.